Hello, my name is Harun Burry from the University Hospital of Geneva in Switzerland, and I'll be showing you this live in the box case of His bundle pacing implantation. So this is a 68-year-old patient with permanent slow wave fib and exertional dyspnea with an ejection fraction of 45%, and the QRS is narrow. I'll be implanting the His bundle pacing lead using the lumenless 3830 lead and the C315 His guiding catheter. So the first step is to locate the His bundle using the pacing lead in unipolar sensing. And here I'm in the atrium, as can be seen by the rapid activity in this patient in atrial fibrillation. I find it useful to map the His in the right anterior oblique 20 to 30 degree view, which gives a long axis perspective of the heart. The guiding catheter and lead are moved around, and the His potential is found here. I am now in the ventricle, as there no longer are any atrial signals on the lead, and the HV interval is measured at 48 milliseconds, which is normal. Once the His bundle has been located, a reference image is then taken. After disconnecting the lead is then fixated by rotating the lead body. Here the lead has just moved slightly, so it's reconnected, and one can no longer see the His potential. So the lead needs to be repositioned. The His bundle needs to be located again, and that's where the reference image comes in handy. So there it is, and the His lead is now stabilized in position and fixated again. So the lead is disconnected and rotated upon itself while maintaining the guiding catheter steady with my right hand. We can just now see a run of junctional beats, and that's usually quite a good sign. And as I keep rotating the lead, I can feel the torque build up in the lead. And that's something that you really need to feel with His bundle pacing, as this indicates that the lead is well fixated. The His lead is then connected again, and as can be seen, we still have a His potential, this time with a current of injury in the unfiltered green channel. The current of injury here is negative, but it can also be positive depending on how you set up the channel. The presence of a current of injury is very important because it implies that the screw has very good contact with the His bundle and that the capture thresholds are going to be low. The guiding catheter is then carefully retracted, being careful not to dislodge the lead. And the next step will then be to perform the threshold tests. This is done by pacing in the unipolar mode and decrementing the output 5 volts, 2 volts, 1 volt. And here there's a transition in QRS morphology between 2 volts and 1 volt with splitting of the endocardial signal and also a small change in QRS morphology more readily visible in lead 1 with a decrease in R wave amplitude and also loss of a small pseudo delta wave and an isoelectric interval in all 12 leads, and all these signs indicate transition from non-selective to selective His bundle pacing. Pacing output is further decremented with loss of capture at 0.7 volts, yielding us a threshold of 0.8 volts at 0.5 milliseconds, which is very good. Note that the sensing amplitude is 2.7 millivolts, but this is in the unipolar mode, so we need to know what bipolar sensing amplitude is. So the lead is connected in a bipolar configuration to test bipolar sensing, and the R wave amplitude is measured at 1.6 millivolts, down even to 1.5 millivolts, which is quite low. Note here that the atrial and ventricular channels show the same signal. That's simply because they're both connected to the same cable. The scale on the atrial channel is larger, and one can make out the His potential again with the current of injury. which is positive on the PSA. Ideally, we would like to have a bipolar sensing amplitude of at least 2 millivolts, and after some hesitation, it was decided in this case to actually add a right ventricular backup lead to ensure proper ventricular sensing. So a standard pacing lead was then inserted on the interventricular septum. Once this was done, the stability of the His bundle lead was tested again by pushing the guiding catheter in the lead and creating a U shape. And as it can be seen here, the His lead seems very stable. The capture threshold is tested again and shows values which remain excellent with a capture threshold of 0.7 volts. The next step is then to slit the guiding catheter using an adjustable slitter which grasps the lead, then cuts through the valve and is held steady while the guiding catheter is pulled back in one movement. The lead slack then needs to be checked and adjusted here by undoing the loop. And once the lead is in position, the thresholds are tested again. As you can see, the His potential is unchanged after slitting, and the capture threshold is tested again in unipolar and yields a capture threshold of 0.7 volts at 0.5 milliseconds. A dual chamber pacemaker generator is then used with the His lead connected to the atrial port and the backup ventricular lead to the ventricular port. The device is programmed as shown, and because ventricular sensing is ensured by the ventricular lead, there's no need for the His lead to sense, and that's why the sensitivity is programmed to the maximum value of 4 millivolts. In order to avoid unnecessary ventricular pacing, the ventricular safety pacing is inactivated after having checked for crosstalk. And these are the marker channels with the ventricular safety pacing activated and inactivated with pacing by the His lead and sensing by the backup ventricular lead. Those of you who wish to dig deeper into His programming can look up these reference articles. So this is what the paced QRS looks like with unipolar pacing. The pacing was then programmed to bipolar, and the patient was seen at 6 months follow-up with clinical improvement and an unchanged capture threshold of 0.75 volts at 0.4 milliseconds. So that's it for this case, and all the best with your His bundle pacing implantations.